Week 2 is here, and we have some wide receivers with some good matchups. Let's talk some start sits for some wide receivers. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. Today we're going to be talking about some wide receivers, right? We got to get these lineups set for Week 2. Want to make sure we got that warm, fuzzy feeling as we head into our Week 2 matchup, and we got to pick some players. There's some big names with some good matchups that could put up some big points this week, and that's probably going to make you guys pretty happy. Same format as the last couple episodes. I got a whole list. I got like 40 or 50 names here I'm going to fly through, give you a quick start-sit designation, a reason why, and then we're going to move on. Before I do that, though, make sure you guys head over to the Roto-Baller channel after this video. Click that subscribe button. You don't want to miss the live interactive shows on Sundays, and there's tons of great content up there all throughout the week. Also wanted to let you guys know, give you a quick heads up. I know how you like how interactive I am with the questions and comments. I try my best to at least get one response to everybody on every video. I try. It's difficult. I can't promise it, but I do my best. I am a North Carolina resident, all right? So there is a little bit of a storm headed this way in case you haven't heard. If my response time gets a little bit slower here towards the end of the week, that's the reason why. I'm not ignoring anybody, and I'm not stopping the responding. Just want to make sure you guys were aware of it. Praying for all the families along the coastline. I'm a little bit more inland, but sounding like we could get some heavy wind and rain here also. Just want to give you guys that heads up, just so you know I'm not ignoring you. All right, now let's get into some wide receivers here for Week 2. All right, so like the other episodes, these guys are in no specific order. These are not in ranking order or anything. It's literally a list of wide receivers, my quick designation, and a reason why. That's it. Don't read anything into the order that the guys are named off. I will start at the top of the list, though, and you got the guys like Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Odell Beckham, Julio Jones, and Michael Thomas. All 5 of them have great matchup this week and have the potential to put up a big game. They are obvious must-starts. Not going to waste your time talking about them. Let's move on to Davante Adams, though. And this is somebody who we need to talk about a little bit. He's going to be going up against Minnesota this week at home, which is good. And I have him as a start right now. Obviously, he's one of the top receivers in football. But there's a little bit of a question mark with this one. We don't know the exact health of Aaron Rodgers yet. If Aaron Rodgers does sit and does miss this game, you guys have to realize DeShone Kizer will be the quarterback. And DeShone Kizer is not the greatest of all things quarterback. Now, if he does play, you probably want to start Davante Adams still, but I would not have any expectations, above a wide receiver 2 level. If you have better options and you have somebody sitting on the bench with a great matchup, maybe it's something you think about putting him in there. Right now I have him as a start, but we really got to monitor Aaron Rodgers. Keenan Allen is next on the list, and he will be a start this week going against Buffalo in Buffalo. One issue I have with Keenan Allen this week, though, is they're playing Buffalo. And if the score gets out of hand like it did last week when they played the Ravens, the Chargers could lean on the run a lot more in the second half, kind of limiting the upside of Keenan Allen. I still think he's a productive play. I just wouldn't be looking for the huge week this week unless he can break off a couple big touchdowns early in the game. AJ Green is next on the list, and he's going to be a start also, but I have a little bit of concern about him too. They're playing on Thursday night against Baltimore. Now, historically, the Thursday night games are not what you would call high-powered offensive style of games. Something about the game on Thursday night throws them out of their rhythm, and they just don't produce to the level that they can usually when they play on Sundays. That's nothing scientific. It just kind of seems the way things happen. So there's that going against him. But he is the top target on an offense that looks way improved this year. They may struggle getting the run game going against that tough Baltimore front, and A.J. Green should see plenty of opportunities. He's still a start, but I wouldn't say he's a home run this week. T.Y. Hilton is next on the list, and he's going to be a start this week also, going to be playing on the road in Washington. More than likely will be paired up with Josh Norman across on the other side. But Andrew Luck looked healthy last week. He looked good, and I can actually start to put some trust in him. He's only going to get better as time goes on, as he gets more comfortable in the pocket. I mean, that was a long time off that he took. And if Andrew Luck's in the pocket and he's healthy, T.Y. Hilton is a borderline top 10 wide receiver. I'm starting him this week. No issues. Mike Evans is next on the list, and I'm going to start Mike Evans this week, but I'm going to have tempered expectations once again. It's one of those matchups that I'm just not thrilled about. They're playing against the Eagles, and yes, they're at home, but I'm not bought into the fact that Ryan Fitzpatrick is now the greatest of all time as far as quarterbacks go. He looked like it in Week 1. That may have been the best game of his career. Now he gets to go up against the Philadelphia Eagles defense, which is one of the tops in the league, with a crazy pass rush. Ryan Fitzpatrick could struggle, and if he does, Mike Evans takes the hit. I'm worried a little bit that we're kind of buying into this hype after Week 1. Still starting Mike Evans, but I'm not expecting that big of a game. Tyreek Hill is next on the list, and this dude is going to start every single week from now on. I apologize. I was wrong about Tyreek Hill and the Patrick Mahomes connection. I assumed at some point throughout this offense that somebody was going to take a hit and lose some value. I thought it was going to be Tyreek Hill. Apparently, it's more Travis Kelce. Kelce was pretty much non-existent in week 1, and Tyreek Hill was everywhere. They're going up against Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, against a Pittsburgh team that can put up some points. Hill will be involved, and he doesn't need to rely on those deep passes, apparently. Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill is a great connection. I'm starting Tyreek Hill for sure. Stefon Diggs is next on the list, and I'm going to actually sit Stefon Diggs this week, going to Green Bay against the Packers. Now, Aaron Rodgers may not play in this game, and the Packers' offense may struggle at times with him not there. If that's the case, I can see Minnesota getting a lead early, going for the kill shot in the first 2 quarters, and then just running the ball a lot in the second half. That's a lot of risk to put into Stefon Diggs since he's more of a big play style receiver. I'm going to sit Stefon Diggs this week, and I'm probably going to start the next guy I'm talking about. That next guy is Adam Thielen, and he is the one that I'm going to be starting between the 2 Minnesota wide receivers. He's the safer bet this week, in my opinion. They're not going to be throwing the ball all 4 quarters if Aaron Rodgers sits. Thielen is more of the possession-style receiver that can get more targets, more short yardage targets, and can really help you out in PPR leagues. I have no issue starting Adam Thielen. I just think Diggs is a little bit too TD dependent and a little bit too risky. Amari Cooper is next on the list. Do we really want to talk about Amari Cooper and his 1 catch for 9 yards? I thought the offense was running through Amari Cooper, and now they're on the road in Denver where he now has to deal with Chris Harris for a week. I'm sitting Amari Cooper until we can figure out that Oakland offense, and to see if that preseason talk about the offense running through Amari Cooper was just coach speak or if they're really going to try to do it. Larry Fitzgerald's next on the list, and I'm actually going to sit Larry Fitzgerald also this week. They're going to be on the road in LA against the Rams. Listen, whoever plays quarterback, whether it's Bradford or Rosen for the Cardinals, they're going to be running for their life. This is not a great offensive line in Arizona, and whoever plays quarterback is going to struggle to get the ball out. They're going to have a hard time having enough time in the pocket to actually allow the receivers time to get open. That worries me for Fitzgerald this week. He's not as safe as he has been in weeks past, and with this matchup, I'm going to sit Larry Fitzgerald. Allen Robinson is next on the list, and I'm also going to sit Allen Robinson this week. They're going to be at home against the Seahawks, which on paper doesn't sound too bad. The Seahawks defense is not what it was, a few years back. But Allen Robinson is just going to be inconsistent from week to week. It's what we were worried about in the preseason. Is he going to put up big numbers one week and then a couple duds? Possible. But I just don't trust Mitch Trubisky enough to involve him every single week. They're going to have to start getting Trey Burton going if they want to win in that offense. They can't solely rely on just one target outside. Allen Robinson is going to stay inconsistent for the near future, and for right now, this week, I'm sitting him. Next up is JuJu Smith-Schuster of the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to be at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. I expect a lot of offense in this game as long as the weather is good, and JuJu, in my mind, could be in the running for one of the best wide receiver 2s in all of football. The dude is just productive. He's looked at by Ben. A lot of the defensive attention is always focused on Antonio Brown, and it gives JuJu a lot of single coverage. Great matchup, weak defense for Kansas City. I expect a good game out of JuJu Smith-Schuster, and I'm starting him. Demaryius Thomas is next on the list. They're going to be at home against the Oakland Raiders, and the Oakland Raiders defense is nothing to be too worried about. But Demaryius Thomas seems to be more of the red zone target and the possession-style receiver. Emmanuel Sanders is actually the guy getting the bulk of the work there, but Demaryius Thomas is a safe play. I'm starting him this week. Should have plenty of opportunities to put up points, time in the red zone. Demaryius Thomas is a safe play for me this week in week 2. Marvin Jones is next on the list, and I'm going to start Marvin Jones this week in San Francisco. Hopefully no more than a flex play for you, though. If he's your wide receiver 2, I'm going to be a little bit worried for his production. The issue is not Marvin Jones, or it's not even really Matthew Stafford. Hopefully Stafford is healthy, and that does play a part, but Kenny Golladay and Golden Tate are 2 solid wide receivers that he has to compete with every single week. Now, he's going to have his good weeks, and he's going to have his bad weeks. They're going to have to throw to beat San Francisco. That run game is pretty much non-existent still in Detroit. I like the chances of Marvin Jones getting into the end zone this week. I'm going to start him, like I said, though, hopefully as just a flex play. Brandin Cooks is next, and he's going to be at home against the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going to start Brandin Cooks. I like what I saw out of that offense in Los Angeles for the Rams. Brandin Cooks is really involved in that offense, a lot more than Sammy Watkins was last year. He's somebody that Jared Goff was looking his way quite often. I mean, they like to throw the ball in Los Angeles, and Cooks had a decent game last week with 5 catches for 87 yards. That's kind of what you're going to get out of Cook. There's going to be times where he gets that touchdown, puts him over the top. He's not a big PPR style guy, but can always hit the home run and give you a safe floor. I'm going to start Brandin Cooks this week. Chris Hogan is next on the list, and boy, did he suck last week. No idea what happened there. Tom Brady's top wide receiver target didn't show up, apparently. And now Philip Dorsett is a thing? Well, until Julian Edelman comes back and we can figure out this offense a little bit more, Gronk is really the only pass-catching weapon I want to deal with right now. Everybody else is a huge question mark from week to week. I'm going to sit Chris Hogan, being that they're in Jacksonville against the Jaguars, and he'll more than likely have Jalen Ramsey covering him. Golden Tate is next on the list. We just talked about Marvin Jones, and Golden Tate's going to be a start also for me in San Francisco against the 49ers. He's more reliable than Marvin Jones is. He's more of a PPR guy than Marvin Jones is. Had a good week, 7 catches for 79 yards and a touchdown, and I expect something similar this week in San Francisco. Like I said, they're going to have to throw the ball. They just struggle getting the run game going there in Detroit. So as long as Matthew Stafford is a full go, I'm starting Golden Tate also this week. Jarvis Landry is next. They're going to be on the road in New Orleans to face the Saints, and the Saints are still pissed after losing to the Bucs in Week 1. I can see the Saints coming out on fire, trying to do whatever they can to avoid going 2-0. That's going to in turn lead the Cleveland Browns to having to throw more often. Now, Josh Gordon has his pitch count up this week, so he's not have to be worried about being as limited. But Jarvis Landry is the go-to receiver in that offense, and I'm starting him this week in New Orleans. Being that we just talked about Jarvis, let's talk about Josh Gordon for a second. I just said that they're going to up his pitch count, right? They're going to not limit him as much this week. And being that they're going to have to throw a lot, Josh Gordon gets a big boost in value. I'm definitely starting Josh Gordon this week. I just wouldn't start Gordon and Landry together. Marquise Goodwin's next on the list, and his early game injury really hurt a lot of us out there in fantasy land this week. And it's being reported as a deep thigh bruise and that he's day-to-day. It's something we need to watch this week throughout practice. If he's healthy, if he's a full go, I'm starting him against the Detroit Lions. If he is limited at all, like even in the least bit, I'm going to sit Marquise Goodwin until he's fully healthy. Corey Davis next on the list, and Corey Davis was in line for a big bump in targets with the injury to Delaney Walker. Now Marcus Mariota is somewhat banged up, and we really don't know his status. Blaine Gabbert being the backup quarterback is not horrible. I mean, it could be worse. Not a whole lot worse, but it could be worse. But the amount of targets, like I said, are going to tick up for Corey Davis. He's going to get the opportunity. He's the type of receiver that can go up and make a big play on a bad throw. I'm still starting Corey Davis this week against the Houston Texans. It's easier to throw against the Texans than it is to run against them. I'm firing up Corey Davis this week. Emmanuel Sanders is next on the list. They're going to be at home against the Oakland Raiders, and I mentioned a little bit with Demaryius Thomas. Emmanuel Sanders is Case Keenum's Adam Thielen this year. As long as Sanders can stay healthy, he's going to have a huge year and was probably a steal in your fantasy football drafts. Really like Emmanuel Sanders. Definitely starting them this week. Love the matchup with them and the Raiders. Michael Crabtree is next on the list, and I'm going to continue my hashtag with Michael Crabtree and go never Crabtree. I'm sitting him again. Yeah, he had a touchdown last week, but he had 3 catches for 38 yards, and if it wasn't for that touchdown that he barely squeaked out of the back of the end zone, you're looking at an absolutely horrible week. Apparently, Flacco has turned back into an all-pro quarterback. He's spreading the ball around. John Brown, Willie Snead, are both involved. I'm just not buying it this week. I'm sitting Michael Crabtree at Cincinnati on Thursday night. Now let's talk about Sammy Watkins. Like I said, they're going to be on the road in Pittsburgh, and I expect a lot of offense in this game. I'm just not sold that a lot of it's going Sammy's way just yet. They have a good thing going with Tyreek Hill. He is their stretch the field type receiver. They need to get Travis Kelce going in this offense to become more, multi-dimensional. They have to open up that middle of the field. They have to make Kelce somebody that the defense fears, and 1 catch for 6 yards like he had last week is not going to do it. If anybody else takes a big step forward this week, I'm looking for Kelce more than I am Watkins, and I'm going to sit Sammy. Robby Anderson is next, and they're going to be at home versus the Miami Dolphins, which seems like a pretty good matchup. And last week he had 41 yards and a touchdown. The issue is he had 1 catch for 41 yards and a touchdown. He was 1 catch away from having a 0 stat line. Him and Darnold are not completely on the same page. They don't have that chemistry built up yet. Quincy Enunwa seems like the wide receiver to own in New York, and I'm not willing to mortgage my starting spot on a guy who I have to rely on that one big play week in and week out. I'm holding him, but I'm not starting him yet. Devin Funchess is next, and we're going to continue the hashtag with Funchess, kind of like we did with Crabtree. We're going never Funchess once again, and he's going to sit, going to be on the road in Atlanta. And yeah, people are going to come and say, hey, don't you think he gets an uptick in volume because of the injury to Greg Olsen? Possibly, but the issue is he can't catch. And if you can't catch from the wide receiver position, I don't care how many targets you get, you're limiting your upside. If anything, I think that helps out the Christian McCaffreys. Maybe even DJ Moore gets more work this week. I'm not buying into the Funchess hype. I'm sitting him again. Robert Woods is next for the Los Angeles Rams, and they're going to be at home against the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm starting Robert Woods as long as it's a flex play only this week. Now, did he have a huge stat line last week? No, he didn't. 3 catches for 37 yards is nothing to be too impressed about. But what I do like is they took a few down-the-field shots with him. There was just a multiple plays where the ball was 1 or 2 yards just past the outstretched arms of Robert Woods. He catches one of those, all of a sudden, his stat line for the week is completely different. Now, I expect that Brandin Cooks will have to worry about Patrick Peterson most of the time, and Robert Woods has no real threat on the defensive side of the ball to stop him. If they can continue those deep threats, I like his chances for a touchdown this week, and I'm starting Robert Woods in my flex. Stick right there at the Rams. Let's talk about Cooper Kupp, another guy that I'm okay with as a flex play only if you need it. He is a red zone target. I mean, the dude was one of the tops in red zone targets in 2017, and it's starting again here in 2018. It's somebody that Goff is familiar with in the red zone and that he's going to rely on. He has a huge touchdown upside every single week, and he still has a little bit of PPR value sprinkled in there because he is one of the favorite targets of Jared Goff. If you need a flex play and Cooper Kupp's on your bench, I feel safe with Cooper Kupp this week. Jamison Crowder is next up for the Washington Redskins. They're going to be on the road in Indianapolis, which is a great matchup. Now, Crowder didn't have a great week last week. I know that, but they just ran the ball because they got a lead up against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, this defense isn't much better in Indianapolis, and they could get a lead once again. But Crowder has that PPR upside that I'm not willing to sit yet. More than likely, you took him late enough in the draft that you only need a flex play out of him anyway, and he's somebody that I would definitely gamble on and put in my lineup this week. The matchup is just too good, and if Andrew Luck can continue to evolve and get better back to his old ways, he's going to be able to score points. If that's the case, Washington's going to have to continue to throw. More targets coming Jamison Crowder's way. I'm starting him. Will Fuller is next up, and Will Fuller is completely dependent on the health of Will Fuller. Now, if he is limited in any way this week throughout practice, I'm sitting Will Fuller. I want nothing to do with a partial Will Fuller. If he's not 100% good to go, he's going to be a sit. If for some reason he can make it to the weekend and he's a full go, then I have no issue starting Will Fuller, hopefully as a flex spot only. I just don't know if I trust him quite yet. Kenny Stills of the Miami Dolphins is next. They're going to be on the road against the New York Jets. The New York Jets, who now look like they have a legit offense. I'm going to start Kenny Stills this week. The Miami defense is not going to be strong enough to hold back that offensive attack of the New York Jets, which is weird to say because I haven't said that in a while. But you kind of saw what you can get out of Kenny Stills last week. Those big, huge, explosive plays, somebody you can rely on, somebody that Ryan Tannehill is going to look to early and often. We still don't know the status of Devontae Parker, and if he misses, that only helps Stills more. I'm definitely starting Stills this week. Think he could have a great week going up against that tough offense now that New York has. Good job, Jets. Nelson Agholor is next, and we expected a lot more than we got out of Nelson Agholor last week, but it wasn't a bad week totally. He had a lot of production, just not a lot of yardage, but he was involved in that offense. Nick Foles is the quarterback once again this week, and his favorite target is Nelson Agholor. Now, being that he was so involved in the offense with the run game, he was throwing passes, he was catching passes, he just didn't have the yardage. That was the first game of the season. He's got another week of practice under his belt. They're good to go. Love Nelson Agholor this week, and I'm definitely starting him at Tampa Bay this week. Pierre Garcon is next on the list, and right now I have him listed as a sit against the Detroit Lions, whose defense looked a little weak this past week, to say the least. Now, the reason I'm sitting him is we don't really know the status of Marquise Goodwin yet. It sounds like there's a possibility that he plays this week, and George Kittle has already made himself the number one target in that offense. If Goodwin plays, which it sounds like he may, I expect Goodwin and Kittle to get the bulk of the targets. Garcon is nothing more than a safety valve, move the chain type of guy, and it has limited upside at this point. I'm going to sit Pierre Garcon this week. Randall Cobb is next, and he was one of my starts of the week last week, and he had a big game with Aaron Rodgers, especially there at the second half. Now, he's kind of going to depend on the health of Aaron Rodgers this week. If Rodgers sits and we have to deal with DeShone Kizer, I'm going to sit Randall Cobb. If for any reason Rodgers plays, Cobb is almost a must-start to me. Definite flex play with a wide receiver 2 upside. We just got to monitor that injury to Aaron Rodgers. Jordy Nelson is next up on the list for the Oakland Raiders, going to be at Denver, and I'm sitting Jordy Nelson. I really don't want any part of that passing offense outside of Jared Cook at this point. Jordy didn't do a whole lot this past week. Cooper didn't do a whole lot this past week. Jordy had 3 catches for 23 yards, and 17 of them were on 1 catch. Not a whole lot of production. Not interested in the matchup. I'm sitting Jordy Nelson this week. Kelvin Benjamin's next on the list for the Buffalo Bills. They're going to be playing at home against the Chargers, and he's a part of the Buffalo Bills offense, which means what? I'm going to sit him. Sterling Shepard next up on the list, and I really like Sterling Shepard this week as a surprise play. Going to be on the road in Dallas. I can see double-digit targets coming Sterling Shepard's way this week, and that could lead to huge production. A lot of defensive attention is going to go to Odell and Saquon Barkley. Shepard should see one-on-one coverage all week long, and Eli Manning has already proven that he looks for Shepard a lot. Really like the upside of Sterling Shepard, and he is a start for me this week. Keelan Cole next up on the list for the Jacksonville Jaguars, going to be playing at home against the New England Patriots. As of right now, I'm starting Keelan Cole in a flex spot if need be. They're going to have to throw the ball in Jacksonville if they're going to beat the New England Patriots, especially because we don't know the status of Leonard Fournette yet. If Fournette sits, they're going to rely more on the pass, which is a little scary for Blake Bortles, but I like the upside play of Keelan Cole if Fournette is out. Kenny Golladay next on the list. We've already talked about the other 2 receivers in Detroit, so now it's his turn. They're going to be on the road in San Francisco. Now, I started the other 2 guys, and I'm going to start Kenny Golladay also as a flex play only. He has the risk. Just because the other 2 guys are there involved, you never know whose week it's going to be. Now, that is a high-powered passing offense, and if Stafford is healthy, he's going to throw the ball. I said it earlier in the preseason, all 3 of these guys have the potential to have 1,000-yard seasons. And with that being the case, I have no issues throwing them in at your flex this week against a team that they're going to have to continue to throw with no run game in Detroit. Tyler Lockett next up on the list, and he's a popular name this week because of the Doug Baldwin injury and being out, and a lot of people are quick to rush out and get Tyler Lockett. I'm not so much on the Tyler Lockett bandwagon. He's very big play dependent. Yes, he had a good game last week on paper, but that all came from like 1 play. I don't want to buy that 1 play, and Doug Baldwin missed almost all of that game. I'd much rather have Brandon Marshall in that offense. I think he sees more targets and is a safer play in the red zone. I'm going to sit Tyler Lockett and start Brandon Marshall. Allen Hurns is next on the list, and I'm going to sit Allen Hurns this week for the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to be at home against the Giants. Not that it's a horrible matchup for Allen Hurns. I just think the Dallas Cowboys get back to the running game this week. They have to have the run game going in order to set up the passing game for Dak Prescott. I see a heavy dosage of Ezekiel Elliott this week, and I think Allen Hurns kind of takes a little bit of a backseat to Cole Beasley. I'm going to sit Allen Hurns. John Brown is next on the list, and he's kind of a popular name this week, seeing that he had a touchdown there in Week 1 from Joe Flacco. But on a Thursday night game where offense usually struggles against a Cincinnati team, I can see a lot more ground and pound, a lot more running in this game. I expect a heavy dose of Joe Mixon and Alex Collins. Not so much from John Brown. He's too inconsistent and too risky for me this week. I'm going to sit him. Chris Godwin next on the list, and he's somebody I want to talk about in Tampa Bay, going to be at home against the Philadelphia Eagles. I talked about it with Mike Evans. They're going to pay a lot of attention to Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin is somebody who could fly under the radar and have a sneaky good week. If you need a flex play, I'm starting Chris Godwin as a flex only in deeper leagues. He's somebody that has proven that he is part of that offense. You know, Fitzpatrick looked for him. He had a touchdown last week also. Not a whole lot of targets, but if they have Evans locked down, that's just more targets going towards Chris Godwin. And plus, Deshaun Jackson is kind of banged up, and we don't know his exact status for Week 2 yet. Make sure you're monitoring that. But if anything happens with Jackson, Godwin is almost a must-start in the flex spot. Ted Ginn Jr. is the last guy I'm going to talk about. They're going to be at home against the Cleveland Browns, and I've talked about with the other Saints. They're going to be, pissed in New Orleans. They're going to be throwing the ball. They're going to be trying to put up as many points as they possibly can because they know their defense is not where it needs to be. Ted Ginn is somebody who Drew Brees relies upon. He's good for about 5 catches a game and has that big play ability. If you need a flex play, I'm going with Ted Ginn and starting him. All right, so there's a pretty beefy list of wide receivers here for the week. There was others that I could have added, but you know what? I don't want to make this video 6 hours and 12 minutes long because nobody would watch it. I do kind of enjoy this new format. You guys seem to enjoy it too. You like the longer list with the more names. We're going to stick with it for now. But if you guys have any other questions, comments, make sure you hit them up down below. I will do my best to get to them. I cannot promise that I will be able to answer every question and comment, especially this week here towards the end of the week with this weather coming in. It's going to get a little sketchy here in North Carolina, but hopefully you guys have a good rest of your week. We'll talk to you later. Make sure you guys are liking, commenting, subscribing, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks.